Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 5, the late night edition. Make sure all your kids are asleep.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Once again, Ed Estrada, Isaac Caetano. After a 2-week layoff, once again, life gets in the way.
The paying
But,
jobs get in the way.
yeah, the paying jobs get in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Let's right off the bat. 2 weeks ago, big upset in Section 9 football. Huge upset in Section 9 football. Kingston Monroe.
Yeah.
Who'd have
Probably
thought?
the biggest,
Yeah.
definitely the biggest upset so far in Section 9.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of information out on the game. I didn't get a chance to watch some of the replays, but in some of the box scores that I've seen, the typical Monroe rushing attack was non-existent against Kingston. So I don't know if it was the Tiger defense or Monroe was really having a bad off night, but let's put this in perspective. The last time Kingston went into Central Valley and beat a Crusaders team was 1994. So that was 30 years ago. They hadn't beaten Monroe since 2000. What's the date I got here? 2002 was the last time they beat the Crusaders at all. So that's 22 years. So a lot of things were broken really in a fashion that was unpredictable, given the fact that Kingston defensively was giving up 40 points a clip this year to many teams, including both Middletown and Valley Central the previous couple of weeks.
Right.
And Monroe was arguably, up until this past week, the best team in Section 9. Isaac, have you heard what went on in that ball game?
Right. No, so I haven't heard any specifics. I mean, however, you know what I mean? Truth be told, Kingston was winning at the half, and at the end of the game, honestly, I heard it was a Kingston show. Everybody was just as stunned as us. I think even Monroe was stunned. You know, you get certain upsets, right, where you're like, all right, like we can come back in the second half. First half we play bad, but then you get certain upsets where it's just like, okay, what's happening here? This wasn't right. And again, everybody knows I coach at Monticello, right? So I see it all the time. When teams come to Monticello right now, they and other teams, not just Monticello, but I speak from personal experience, they expect to win. So when we win or when we're up at the half, I tell my team all the time, being up at the half is a huge advantage. Because the kids in the locker room, they're like, listen, I thought of this game going 50 different ways. And being down to Monticello was never one of them.
Wasn't one of them.
That was never one of them. Right. So now you get in that third quarter, and you're like, okay. You get in that mid third quarter, and you're like, whoa, this is real. We're about to lose. And sometimes you just start thinking about that way too much before the game actually comes to a close. Where it just you let that other team, and Kingston as a team. Kingston is a momentum team. Kingston is a momentum team. Wherever the
momentum. Listen, they put up points. We saw them against Goshen. Their quarterback is can show up sometimes in Jack Purvis. I think he went. I'm looking at the stats on Max Preps now, 9 of 14 for 103 yards with a touchdown. John Jones on the ground, 21 carries, 89 yards on the day. I believe they had the one receiving touchdown, but I think they had a defensive interception return for a touchdown too in that ball game. But the big deal for me was they're limiting Monroe Woodbury on the ground to just 92 yards as a team. We've seen just one of their players have 92 yards in a game, let alone the entire team. So the running attack, for whatever reason, we've been talking all year long and how historically the Crusaders always do a great job.
They beat them
under the offensive line and things of that nature. But for some reason, it didn't show up here. So, I mean, I think in looking at that game, that was obviously a weird one. And it kind of, when you look at the standings now in Section 9 football, and I'm going to try to bring them up here because I did want to have them. Let's see if I can bring them up. Let's see. Where did I have them? I'm going to try to bring them up here while we're talking because it's brought up something really interesting, Isaac. If you look at that, the big schools, we came into the year and we said, oh, we think it'll be Newburgh,
and more.
and then we were like, nah,
That's why I love doing these podcasts. It's just getting to reflect week after week after week. It's why I love doing the job entirely. Just what you thought just unfolded in a complete different way.
Yeah, after that Port Jervis game, right? We rode off Middletown.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden,
after Newburgh lost to Cornwall, wrote them off.
All of a sudden, kind of put on their lap. The Mini Bears are all of a sudden back in the discussion again because their next two games,
Pine Bush and Middleton and Monroe-Woodbury.
Pine Bush and Monroe at home to finish the year.
Yeah, so I just told somebody. I just told somebody online that the Middletown's 2-5. They're not the same anymore. And just at the end of last week, right? I'm thinking, and I'm like, Middletown's in a beautiful position right now.
If they can pull out the win on the road,
could not matter.
Yeah, and that'll be one of the games we'll pick later on. But if they can pull off a win over Pine Bush on the road, and end up being 3-1 in the division, playing your last game at home against Monroe-Woodbury when you're both tied.
In a team where those games have been closer than anything in these last couple of meetings.
And Newburgh, I mean, a lot of it's going to be determinant on that Newburgh-Kingston game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Kingston now all of a sudden is feeling themselves a little bit.
Could you imagine?
They can go into Newburgh and cause some damage, especially if they play the type of defense they played against Monroe.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine tomorrow we get the news that Kingston went to Newburgh and won?
Yep. And then that puts the pressure on that Middletown Pine Bush game.
Golly.
And if they come out of that, boy, that's weird. Listen, we'll talk about the Mini Bears. So we talked about that Kingston Monroe game. Newburgh, with a 22-yard field goal in the last 20 seconds of the game, end up beating Pine Bush in that ball game, and that kind of put the Bushmen in a little bit of a slide because now they're 1-3 in the division. Still in okay shape for the playoff unless Kingston can upset Newburgh, because I think Kingston owns a win, right? A loss. Pine Bush owns a win.
Pine Bush, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Pine Bush has still got to play. When Monroe plays Middletown, Pine Bush got to play Kingston.
Yeah, that's going to be a game. It's going to be a game.
So, Middletown, I believe.
I thought Pine Bush beat Kingston now.
No, I thought so too, but now
they beat Valley Central. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Kingston schedule right now, and they finish up away at Newburgh and then home against Pine Bush.
That's going to be. These are the two. I mean, historically for me, these are the two funnest weeks of the season. That week 7 with the playoffs, you know what I mean? Every game seems like it's for a seed. And then in week 8, you get the Class B quarterfinals, and the AA is always wrapping up, right? You can almost never figure out AA until that week 8 territory, and then week 9 goes semifinals, and we get the absolute fun part of the season come championship time. So
taking a look, so Section 9 right now has 2 undefeated teams.
Yeah.
Fort Jervis and Warwick. Fort Jervis, we all knew that once they got beyond the Erie Bell game, that they probably would not have that much of a challenge, and that's proven to be true. They have not given up. Looking at their schedule now, they gave up 28 points to Goshen that first week, and they have not given up any more than 14 since. So the Red Raiders continue to be a juggernaut. It'll be a good up-in-class matchup this weekend at home against Menacing Valley.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be beautiful. It'll be the grand reopening of Gwinnett. Start out with some ceremony, senior night. And I mean, I've been up to the field a few times. I go there almost every night, see the progress. It's going to be a beautiful field. The new LED lights, the new scoreboard is going to be big. And it just makes the matchup. If there was no re-grand opening, it's already a huge game.
Yeah.
Minnesota coming in 7-1, shut out Port Jervis last year. Port Jervis hit with the injury bug. Port Jervis 7-0 undefeated, and then you get a rivalry game to end your season, right? And that creates huge momentum for Port Jervis heading into the
Neighboring schools.
State play. Neighboring schools, we've been rivals for as long as I can remember. In 2019, we beat them for the first time in 10 years. And since then, we beat them. They beat us last year. Really didn't sit well with the Port Jervis team. So I'm very, very, very anxious to see how Port Jervis comes out tomorrow. Minnesota's been playing good football. I'm expecting tomorrow. I told people online. I'm expecting tomorrow to be an instant game of the year classic. It should be a you strike, then I strike, then you strike. Tomorrow's going to come down to who can get that first stop. Who can get the first stop? Better said, who can get the last stop? Who can get the last stop?
All right. So how about with all that said, how about we jump into this week's pick since we're discussing the teams and the games already?
Let's do it.
Let's start off with Valley Central and Monroe.
I think I'll go first here. I think Monroe Woodbury, just like we all know, just like Cornwall when they lost to Monroe Woodbury and bounced back with the Newburgh win. I don't see Monroe Woodbury losing 2 in a row. That'd be a very bad sign for the Crusaders heading into the playoffs. And they don't want to go to Middletown losing to Valley Central. Middletown, I believe, already has enough confidence. I don't think Middletown's 2-5, but I feel like everybody's putting this dark cloud over the Midi Bears. Right, but I truly don't believe that they're as down and out as people think. I think Middletown expects to beat Palm Bush this week, like they have in the past, and I think that next week they expect to give Monroe a hell of a game, and they've had their number these last couple of years. So it's going to be a great coaching matchup. It's hard for me to see Monroe Woodbury blowing past Middletown. It's simply for the fact that the coaches are very familiar with each other, and they've brought in the past couple of years. We've had that. You've had overpowered Middletown teams, overpowered Monroe teams, and it still equates to be a good rivalry game. And I think the same thing is going to happen next week. So I'm going to take Monroe Woodbury to beat Valley Central tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Monroe had a little hiccup, kind of realized that, you know what, you can't let your guard down, which they did. And I think they bounced back big.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we covered the game on 845 Sports Nation and Midi TV, Valley Central at Middletown last week, and Middletown had a 20-0 lead, like before the end of the first quarter, I think, right, Ed?
Yes.
In that game. So it's just I still go back that they're a fundamentally sound team. They lost to Kingston, but it wasn't like they got blown out of the game either.
Right.
So they didn't play their best. They were nowhere near playing their best game and still an opportunity to pull it out. And they didn't because Kingston worked harder at it. But I just don't see Monroe doing that 2 weeks in a row. Could they look past VC towards the end? Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. I think they looked past Kingston. And that's what I'm saying is they let their guard down.
Oh, yes.
I don't think they look past VC. I
don't think so.
How big against VC.
They're watching.
I think we're on the same page, Ed.
Yeah. Okay. Beacon Marlboro. Ed?
So Beacon Marlboro. You know what? I'm going to let Isaac go first.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad Ed's first.
I think you played Beacon, right?
No, I didn't have Beacon this year.
Oh, I thought you had Beacon this year, bro. I want to hear your thoughts because you cover the Bulldogs pretty well.
I'm going to stick with the Beacon train this week. I like Marlboro. I think they got a pretty good defense. If you remember, Beacon beat Kingston 8-0. Earlier in the season in overtime. I think Beacon has a great team. I think Beacon tomorrow's going to be for the 3rd seed when Beacon and Marlboro play. Marlboro got a tough running back. They got a tough offense. They got a tough defense. I think it's going to be a shootout. Shouldn't be high scoring. Both sides are trying to get that number 3 seed because what you don't want to do is have to run into Port Jervis in the first round of the semifinals. So they're going to be playing their guts out, trying not to be first round exits. And I'm gonna bank on Beacon. They got something brewing there. They worked hard for this moment all season. The last 2 seasons, I don't even think they won more than 3 games the last 2 seasons. So to be in this position, getting ready to earn a number 3 seed and go to the quarterfinals and the semifinals in Class B, I think it'd be big for the community. And Marlboro's going to take the 4th seed and do what they can with it. But tomorrow I'm going to go with Beacon over Marlboro.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, so by far, the team that has given Port Jervis their biggest run this year was Marlboro. They lost 28-13 to Port. I think Beacon, did Beacon play Port this year? Let me look at this.
Beacon played Port this year. Beacon lost 49-12.
Yeah, that was their only loss this year. Is Beacon only loss this year? So, and then the other Marlboro loss. So the Dukes have lost 2 in a row, but to 2 quality teams. They lost to Port and they lost to Burke. Yeah. So nothing wrong with those losses, other than the fact that they happened back to back in the most recent week. Beacon's got the home game. So like you said, I think the crowd's going to be into it.
That plays into my pick a lot.
Yeah, and Beacon's coming in at 6-1, I think, and Marlboro's 5-2. I'm going to think that the Bulldogs edge it out. I don't think it's going to be a big rout, but I think it'll be within the touchdown.
Yeah, and I absolutely also wouldn't be surprised if Marlboro won. So it's not, it's not like I'm going with Beacon. I believe Beacon will win, but if I got news that otherwise happened, I wouldn't be complete.
Guys, I'm going to take Marlboro on this real quick, but I got to jump off. So you guys keep going. I'll be right back.
No problem.
No problem. Let me see if I can bring up the other game, other games that we were talking about picking. So we did Marlboro Beacon. Yep, we picked BC Monroe. So now we're going to take a look at that Newburgh Kingston game. What do you think?
I know Kingston's gonna be mad on this one. Beating Monroe Woodbury, Newburgh lost to Monroe Woodbury. I'm still gonna go with Newburgh here. And it's a good thing for Kingston. It's a good thing for Kingston. You don't want to magically become the favorites. Why not go and shock 2 people back-to-back weeks? I think Newburgh, they're at home. They got the home crowd. Kingston's coming in with a lot of momentum, and they know that a lot is on the line. So I do expect it to be a good game. We know Newburgh's not the powerhouse team we keep talking about it that it used to be. So Kingston coming in with the momentum of being on Woodbury, knowing that they beat Newburgh, they're going to have a lot of belief. They're going to have a lot of confidence. But belief and confidence don't play football. And they're going to have to play They're going to have to play the Newburgh Goldbacks. And Newburgh, again, it's not like they're catching Newburgh that should be overlooking Kingston. They're going to catch a Newburgh that's on their toes, right? Skeptical. Newburgh knows that they got some weaknesses. They already know that they can lose because they've seen it. They've lost, and they've almost lost to teams that they shouldn't have lost to, and just had to beat Palm Bush, a team that they've been putting their foot down on in recent history by a field goal. So I'm going to go with Newburgh here.
Wow, it's a tough one. I really would love to pick Kingston because it's just a weird story.
I would too.
Because, they look lost for a long period of time after that opening win against Nyack. We saw them lose to Goshen at the last minute, and then really didn't recover from that for a couple of weeks, losing big to Middletown. Middletown put 44 points on them. Even though they beat Walk Hill put 29 points on them. Valley Central put 24 points.
How did they hold Monroe to 10
points? I haven't figured it out yet. I think.
And I got to watch a little bit of the game. I got to watch about the first 2 drives. And I really think, the Monroe, the running offense, Chester, almost, they had the same kind of game against us. When you run, right, you waste so much clock. You choose so much clock.
Your possession time, the number of offensive possessions that you get, you have to be perfect.
Right. You got to be perfect. You got to strike when you get in the red zone. You can't give the ball back. I honestly believe the time to come back teams like Murray Woodbury use that through all 4 quarters.
Mhm.
They play so fundamentally sound. So that time that they would have had to come back, usually, it just wasn't on. It just wasn't. It wasn't on the clock, and I think that really, really, really helped Kingston. It really did. It really did. It makes a huge difference looking at that scoreboard, knowing that you're in the game and you're almost there. It makes every down that much harder.
And Newburgh still has, they have a really good offense. I know it's fairly new, but Montgomery. I think Montgomery was 24 for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns against Pine Bush. And then Barnwell, let's see, was 19 of 25, 252 yards with a touchdown. So, Pine Bush, I think for whatever reason, they started off with gangbusters on the running attack, and it's still very a legitimate running attack, but it has slowed down over the last couple of weeks. So I'm gonna take Newburgh because I just think the go-backs with the Tigers beating Monroe, that has provided some additional incentive for Newburgh, thinking that they can win the division now.
I agree.
They know that Monroe Middletown game will be a close one, and there's an opportunity now that they lose the head-to-head, so they need Monroe to lose another ball game here, and for them to win out in order to win the division, because Monroe defeated Newburgh earlier this year.
Right.
But so I think Newburgh knows its only opportunity to win the division is by defeating Kingston and then having Middletown defeat Monroe. That's really where they're at right now.
And where's the AA championship this year? Because I know they decided.
If they've decided, I haven't heard yet. So I might.
Think I've seen it on the.
Let me see if it's on
the football site. Yeah, that's where I saw it.
I'll try to look at the site in the meantime. So I think you and I are both with Newburgh on that game, and while I look that up.
Yeah, AA's back at NFA.
It's NFA again.
Okay. So Newburgh's trying to do whatever they can to get back home to the finals. I don't care if it's the number 2 seed. I don't care if it's the number 1 seed. They're trying to get back home to the finals. That's all they're trying to do.
It didn't work out too well last year, but
I know.
They'd still rather have it,
I know. I mean, can't go wrong playing the championship at home. So
next up, Port and Minisink.
Golly, this pick has been haunting me all week. I tell you that. This pick has been because I'm not a guy I don't just roll Port Jervis. I love Port Jervis. Obviously, I'm an alumni there. My little brother plays there. But if I think they're gonna lose, I'm gonna say that I think they're gonna lose. If I think they know that about me by now. And this game tomorrow, and I would love to plead the fifth. I really would. I would love to plead the fifth. I have no idea what's gonna happen here tomorrow. It reminds me of 2019 when we played Minisink.
Minisink, just to let folks out there know, so Minisink comes in overall 6-1 on the season. Their only loss so far this year is to Newburgh, 26-14 in a game that they had, I think, a 14-0 lead to start.
I think it was night. I think it was.
They lost 26-14.
Oh, they lost 20. Oh, yeah. So Yep. So
they had a 14-0 lead in that ball game before the go-back stormed back. Yeah. But the last
in Newburgh,
their last 5 games, they've put up 36, 51, 47, 48, and 34 points. Now, they haven't played the level of competition that a Port Jervis is, They play in those games, Washingtonville, FDR, Goshen, and Walk-Hill.
I know.
So it's hard to gauge the tough games for Minisink. Pine Bush, they came away with an 8-point win. They lost to NFA, and in the opening week of the season against Suffern, they came away with an 11-point.
It's what throws me off. I love Port Jervis. We're playing great football, playing good football. And you know what I really hate? I was talking to a couple old guys earlier this week, and we were talking about the do-so days. They were educating me on the do-so days when there was no class, when there was no size. It was simply Dutchess, Ulster, Sullivan, Orange County, period. If you live in these counties, then we're going to play football and we're going to play each other. Port's going to play Monroe. Port's going to play. With the classes, obviously it opens the door for who plays more competition, who has better competition. And I don't think Port Jervis would deny the fact that they don't play the toughest teams in the section, obviously, right? I mean, but again, there's no fault to the Raiders. They didn't choose to be Class B. That's just what the population got them. So what I ask myself all the time is, what would a Port Jervis Newburgh game look like? What would a Port Jervis Cornwall game look like? What would a Port Jervis Monroe game look like? What would a Port Jervis Pine Bush game looks like? Everybody in the section, you know what I mean, believes Port Jervis, right? They're having a great season, they're playing great football, but they're not playing good competition, right? And I think tomorrow is going to answer a lot of people's question in terms of how real Port Jervis is, and that happens every year. That happens every year. Usually on a typical year, nobody believes in Port Jervis until they win the Erie Bell game, right? Port didn't win the Erie Bell game last year, so it's like, all right, like, go win that Class B championship, but you can't hang with the big boys. Yeah. They beat Middletown. They beat Middletown this year, which seemed fun and dandy until Middletown goes 2-5. Now everyone's like, all right, we're all beating Middletown, so that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So now we got to wait for that rivalry game. Port Jervis, since being Class B, you always get Middletown and you always get Menacing. So those two games will tell the rest of the section who you really are. Okay, if Port Jervis goes out, they lose to Menacing. I don't think anybody really cares about the amount of points that they've scored or what they've been doing all season. Port Jervis go out and they lay a beat down on Menacing, everybody's gonna go quiet, right? Because all right, these guys got to be for real. So tomorrow, I'm interested. Menacing got a good run game. I don't believe the Port Jervis defense is as solid as it's been in comparison to the last couple of years. But I do know that something that's unusual is the offense is in charge. The offense can score when they want, how they want tomorrow. I don't think Menacing will stop the offense tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think,
but I don't see the Port Jervis defense stopping Menacing's either.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I do think I'll make the pick for you first since you're having a hard time with it. Good. But I think Port smells an undefeated season. That's a little bit in their head. I think they've got the home game at Gwinnett, which will play a little factor into it. Yep. I have a feeling that the Red Raiders, I think Menacing's opportunity here will be similar to what happened with Newburgh. They need to get up early. If they get up early on Port, who has not had to play from behind yet this year, then what you're factoring in is how that Port Jervis offense reacts to being down in a game, especially if they're down, let's say 14-0 early.
Yep.
We knew what Newburgh did to Menacing, and they showed some character, but did Port Jervis have it in themselves if they fall behind in that game? If Port Jervis scores the first 7 to 10 points in that game, I think it's going to be a rout again.
Oh, yeah.
For the Red Raiders. So I think it behooves the Warriors to try to, stay ahead of them and make them play from behind, maybe force some turnovers in the passing game for Port Jervis that normally they wouldn't be worried about because they're ahead by so much. So I have a feeling that Port, I put, you guys know me, I've said it from the beginning. I think they're a team that's going to make noise in the state playoffs. I've said that I said it 2 weeks ago to Kevin.
Tomorrow will tell me. Tomorrow will give me a great idea at exactly how much noise. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, I'm in terms of that game again. If they get out in front, they beat them bad. That's a great sign. If they fall behind, then they can come from behind and give them a great game. That's a great sign. But if they fall from behind and Port Jervis goes and they don't rally, I'll be worried. And I think it's another first round state playoff exit after they beat whoever they play in the Class B championship. tomorrow is going to teach me a lot about the Port Jervis Raiders.
But unfortunately, you have to pick the game before it happens, not after.
Unfortunately, I got to pick the game before it happens. I'm going to go with the home team here. I think Menacing's going to come in. I think, again, they have a point to prove themselves. They're getting ready next week to play. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Warwick beats Washingtonville, barring another crazy upset. And then next week is going to set up a Week 8 showdown for number 1 in the division in Class A. And Menacing again, you don't want to go into a game like that losers your following week to any team. You know what I mean? I don't care if it's Class B, Class A, Class AA. You want to go into a showdown for the number 1 seed as winners.
Yeah, if you're Menacing and you finish the year beating Port Jervis and Warwick, the only 2 remaining undefeated teams in Section 9, then you're going to head into the playoffs with a big feather in your cap.
I didn't even consider the fact that they got to play the last 2 undefeated teams of the season. I didn't even see that coming till you pointed that out.
Yeah, the Warriors are playing 2 teams that are 14-0 combined right now.
Yeah, that is crazy. So you go in there and you take them out, and depending on the fashion you take them out, we might be talking about 1 of 2 of the best teams in Section 9 right now. Right, so I think it's going to be a packed game. I'm going to go with the home team. We know Gwinnett Field has a lot of history, a lot of magic on it. I think once they cut those ribbons, I hope Port Jervis don't get caught up in the festivities because that can also really, really hurt. Menacing's not coming down here to they're coming down here to embarrass you in front of your home crowd on that new field. Right, they want to open up the new Gwinnett Field being reopened against the Menacing Warriors, the biggest rival next to Middletown.
Mm-hmm.
Port Jervis fans do not want to go home losers tomorrow, and the Port Jervis players do not want to go home losers. And Menacing would love nothing more than to drive back up Route 6 and leave in Port Jervis in shambles. But I'm going to go with the home team here. And see if Menacing can pull off a quote-unquote upset.
Cool. So, Ed, you need to pick Newburgh against Kingston, and then this game that we just picked.
All right, Newburgh, Kingston. I'm going to take Newburgh. Just obvious reasons. Port Jervis, Menacing. I think Port Jervis is going to have all the pomp and circumstances. They're going to have all the ribbon cuttings. They're going to open up their new field with a loss to Minnesota.
Oh, I knew it. I was going to go.
I knew the way he was going.
I felt it.
I think Minnesota comes in there tomorrow and just totally ruins Port Jervis's night.
See, now Ed has the devil on my shoulder.
I think Port Jervis is going to get wrapped up into the new field, the whole, all the hoopla and everything else.
That's possible.
And the highlight of Port Jervis's night is going to be the ribbon cutting.
Oh.
You hear that, Kevin? You hear that, Mr. Halpany and Mr. Faggio?
Oh man,
oh, boy!
Trust. Listen, it's going. It can happen.
Raider Nation.
It can happen.
It can. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be packed. Those kids, and again, Port Jervis. And again, I'll give a little insight too. I'm talking to my little brother, and he's at. I'm nervous, and he's confident through the roof.
As well, he should be. But I mean, on the other hand, I think I'm going to have to find those glasses. Who was the Mets manager that was hiding in the dugout that had the glasses? Yes, with the mustache.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to find a set of them.
No, it's going to be. It's going to tomorrow. I really look for. It's one of those Friday night games. Where Thursday night, you really just you can't wait to wake up tomorrow.
Are you going to the game?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know if you have your game. When's your game?
We play. We got Highland on Saturday.
Okay.
So tomorrow's senior night for my little brother. So we got to get out there early. We got to walk.
So real quick, the NFA Kingston. Everybody go with NFA.
Yeah, we went NFA.
Okay, and then Port Jervis. Ed, you went with Port.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll move on to Warwick, Washingtonville.
I'm gonna go with the Wildcats. Honestly, I think a lot of people, and I was waiting to talk about this because I think a lot of people, including myself, has absolutely slept on Warwick all season. And the reason why, Ed, is because same thing we talk about with Walkill. Warwick does this to us every time.
You
Warwick,
said it. You
Warwick,
said that in week 1.
Warwick does this to us every time. I could have told you they were going to win them out. I could have told you they were going to win out. I could have told you they would win 8. I could have told you that they would have the most electric offense in Section 9 this season, because they do. This offense hasn't been stopped. Brody Federic is having a season. The Sullivan brothers are having a season. The Warwick offense is exploding right now. The defense, obviously, we're worried about, like always, but Warwick really, really, really has a shot this year. And I look forward to seeing how they finish the season. I will be the first person at the Menacing Warwick game, because that's another game I can't wait for in week 8. Warwick, if Menacing, you think about if Menacing beats Port Jervis and then Warwick beats Menacing, we're talking about for the number 1 in the section. So either Menacing or either looking at the Class A playoffs, either Menacing or Warwick is going to get a crack at Lords, right? If Warwick can get a crack at Lords, did Warwick play Lords? Remind me, guys. Did Warwick see Lords this year?
I'm looking at they did. They won 42-30.
Yep, 42-30. It was a shootout. I remember that. So Warwick they go against Lords. They repeat what they did. We could be looking at a Cornwall Warwick Class A championship. And Warwick, again, with that high power offense that they have, that could be a really fun matchup. I don't think Washingtonville has enough on the defense to stop Warwick. I think Washingtonville can score as many points as they want. I think Warwick's just going to score the same amount of points and more to win that game. That's been Warwick. They've proven that. And I'm sticking with Warwick here to beat Washingtonville tomorrow.
Yeah, they're averaging 31 points a game this year, Warwick. And Warwick, now listen, I want to take a quick look here at Washingtonville's been a little bit of a strange story. I don't believe it or not. So they're 2-4. They've lost 3 in a row. Been shut out in 2 of the last 3 games. They lost to Lords 34-0, and they lost to Menacing 34-0. Sandwiched in between, though, was a close. Going back to the Crusaders that we've talked about. The Crusaders, the last 2 weeks, they lost to Kingston, right? And they beat Washingtonville, but they only beat Washingtonville 28-24.
And if I paid more attention, I would have been on to that Monroe-Kingston game earlier. I'm looking at this game now, and I'm like, I don't know how I missed that. I don't know why I didn't pay no attention to the fact that they beat Washingtonville by just 4. That would have made me a little bit more skeptical heading into the next week.
And that was a home game too. So that was both games. Monroe's game. I'm sorry, Washingtonville was at Washingtonville that game. But nevertheless, two teams that were struggling this year, and the Crusaders had trouble with both of them the last 2 weeks, which is really concerning. I don't know if there's something else going on that maybe all of us here don't know, but there's something missing that sometimes you can only point to team chemistry, maybe. I don't know. In it, that it's an intangible, because they're way too talented to really not take care of business against teams like Washingtonville and Kingston each week. But nevertheless, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Warwick and Washingtonville. And Warwick, I expect Warwick to put up 40 points again this week with the Wizards. So I think it'll be an easy one, and then Warwick will turn its attention to Menacing for the last week of the season.
Oh, yeah. Warwick is trying to come to Menacing. Warwick's trying to come to Menacing A&L. Undoubtedly.
And that leads us to our last game, Middletown at Pine Bush. It's a 2:00 start at Pine Bush. 2 teams that are another rival school districts that are right down the road from each other. Middletown, believe it or not, folks, at 2-5 can still win the division. If they win out, and remember that this is a road game, so it's going to be a difficult one, but then the last one's a home game, which could be the division on the line, depending on what happens with Newburgh Kingston tomorrow night. So I've covered Middletown most of the season. Ed could probably say the same thing with me. They seem to be, not by a lot, but incrementally getting better each week.
Yep.
And
I'll agree with that, because I was going to say
it's not by leaps and bounds, but Anthony Russo, as the quarterback, is becoming more and more confident. What was interesting is that their running attack has become more diverse than Jelani Graham. Rodon was the player of the game against Valley Central, and Jelani Graham sat the entire first quarter, and that was the first quarter when they put up 20 points, most of it on the ground. And Coach Strenfeld came out with a mentality that he really didn't. He was going to coach to win. They went down, they scored on their opening drive, and then did an onside kick on the second one and got back possession on the second time. So they really had Valley Central on their heels. They played, Ed could probably say the same thing. The head coach for Middletown played with a little bit more reckless abandon than you would normally see. But I think coming into the game 1-5, he didn't have anything to lose. So, Pine Bush, though, they're going to run the football. Even in their down games, they run the football. They run the football well. They have run into a tough stretch here, but they also lost on pretty much a last-second field goal to Newburgh, 27-26, a team that routed Middletown a couple of weeks ago. So they're going to be at home. So it's a rival game. Pine Bush is at home. They're still competitive despite being 1-3 in the division. So this is going to be another nip and tuck game. Obviously, I'm going to pick Middletown because
I was going to say, just tell us you're picking me.
This is a long story to get to. I'm taking Middletown.
I truly thought you Pine Bush a second ago.
I don't want to upset. Yeah, I was making the argument for Pine Bush.
Yeah.
Right.
I truly.
I didn't want to upset him.
Well, you did. Well, you did me a favor.
And listen, let's not forget, guys. Come on. Out of all three of us here, only one of us has picked Pine Bush in any week, and it was me.
You're right.
Right. Well, a couple weeks ago against Monroe.
I'm gonna tie that. I'm gonna tie that. I'm gonna tie that. You know why? I'm gonna tie that because
go ahead. Give us your 10-minute story and tell us your Pine Bush.
No. Tell us your Middletown story and then pick Pine Bush.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you about how the Middletown, and it's true. I'm gonna do that. Okay. I do believe that Middletown is prepared for these last 2 weeks. I believe they're prepared for this moment. Again, every time before I think about teams, obviously I know a lot of the coaching staff in Section 9, but Middletown is one that I know greatly. I always think about the coaches and the staff that's involved. And this is a pretty good one. It's a pretty good O coordinator, pretty good D coordinator, pretty good staff underneath both. I think Middletown will be absolutely prepared. I think Pine Bush got a lot of momentum. I think they've lost a lot of close games. And I think that, again, they saw Kingston beat Monroe, and Kingston just set a new bar. They set a new standard, and they want to send a message to Kingston about that last week of the season and what that matchup is going to be like. I think, again, this is the same thing for Beacon Marlboro. I feel the same way about this week. I'm going to pick Pine Bush. But if you called me and said Middletown won, I would not say, oh, my God, wow, how. I would not.
I mean, Pine Bush, as good as what I've played them up to be, they're 1-4 in the last 5.
Exactly.
And so, but they're 0-3 the last 3 weeks, but those games were against Monroe, Warwick, and Newburgh. So arguably the 3 top teams outside of Cornwall and Port Jervis in Section 9. So
right. Battle had a good battle with Menacing Valley, lost in the fourth quarter there. You know what I mean? Warwick, they went and battled Warwick. Monroe Woodbury is probably their worst loss of the year. I think Middletown is going to be prepared. I think there's a good chance that Middletown can win the game. I would not be surprised. But as far as a pick, obviously we got to pick before the game and not after. As I said, I'm going to go with Pine Bush.
Just to finish that up before Ed does his pick on him. To me, the key to that game is, can Pine Bush surprise Middletown with any sort of passing offense? Because Middletown is going to put 8 in the box, because Pine Bush is somewhat one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And teams that we have seen, the teams that we've seen beat Middletown in some manner, and sometimes convincingly, it has not been on the ground.
True.
It's been in the air.
True.
And so if they can throw against Middletown,
True.
different. But I'm not sure they can, because I'm not sure they have those weapons. They have the weapons typically in their running attack. But does Middletown load the box up and say, if you're going to beat me today, you're going to beat me in the air? And I think that's the approach they may take. And I think if it's a running game, Middletown's going to win. If Pine Bush can figure a way to throw the ball sometimes, then it might be a different story.
Yeah, I agree. If Pine Bush keeps the ball on the ground, Middletown wins. If they surprise Middletown, come out throwing the ball, and I'm not saying they got to come out every play and throw the ball. I mean, if they come out and they throw 33% of the time, they're going to catch Middletown off guard. Everybody knows Pine Bush runs the football. Everybody knows it. And Middletown's prepared for it. And if that's the game they come out with, then yes, Middletown go over Pine Bush.
Yeah.
With that, I'm gonna take Middletown as well.
I agree with you guys. I see the game going the same way. I think Pine Bush is just slightly better up front. I think they're better up front.
They are, but remember, usually, okay. And now I'm going to tell you to put your head coach cap on. Okay,
right.
If you are better up front, and the other team loads the box on you, now instead of it's not a one-on-one matchup, defensive lineman to offensive lineman to defensive lineman.
No.
You got to take on the linebackers as an extra, some extra stuff, and maybe you do some run blitzing as well.
Yeah.
With your secondary.
Yeah.
You know, that's the man. If you're going to sit here and tell me that Middletown's only going to put 4 up on front, and they're going to match up against the Pine Bush 4 front, then I agree with you. But I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I'd be stunned if that happened.
Yeah, I agree. All
right. Anything else you guys got?
No, I think
we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I know, right? I think we covered all of the big games this week. Let me look at the schedule one more time just to make sure.
Isaac,
how about Monticello Highland? We got to give a shout out. How
Isaac,
are you going to look
whatever you do, Isaac, do not hand out my phone number tomorrow night to nobody.
Oh, oh my God! Don't get me started. Don't let Port Jervis win that game. Oh, hey, Isaac, you tell. Hey, we already said last night. Yeah, that's coming. That's coming. But maybe you're right, and maybe Port Jervis is walking past me like this tomorrow.
We'll see.
But yeah, no. Last Saturday we got a big win versus Chester.
First time ever.
That was the first time we ever defeated Chester in school history. I've been in Monticello since I was 17 years old, since 2021. Coached 36 games there. It feels good to finally be where we have wanted to head towards in these past couple of years. And thanks to a lot of the past players putting us in position to be able to do this. It was a beautiful day in Monticello. I mean, we knew Chester come. It'd be physical. Chester always has a good team. So I think it's absolutely one of our biggest wins in recent history. And again, we know we're a big school, so that's not where we want to stop. We know that one day we got to get back to Class A and we got to compete with those guys. But for now, you know, our school historically doesn't beat anybody. So we'll take exactly what we can get and just keep on working hard. I told you guys weeks ago, the kids are buying in. We got great athletes. We got athletes all over the place. And now we're finally learning how to put that together as a team and not play as individuals. So it's hats off to Chester. They played an amazing game. Great job in the fourth quarter. But hats off to my team as well. Those guys did great.
Just a quick shout out to Burke, who continues to have a great year. They beat Marlboro 40-7 this past week, so they're 5-1. And then another game that, you know, is probably off the radar for a lot of people, but I want to give them a shout out because both are having good years as of right now. But you have Eldred and Pauling playing this weekend. Pauling comes in at 5-1. undefeated in their division, and Eldred comes in as 4-1 too. So just a shout out to two schools that normally we don't give a lot of play time to.
Yeah. Yeah, Liberty. I'm so glad that I was going to talk about how Liberty plays Dover this week,
That's
but
right.
I completely forgot about how we was about to do Dover a big disservice. Those guys upset O'Neill last week to earn a finals berth into the Class C finals. Dover is going to be playing Chester in the Class C finals.
Oh wow, nice.
It won't be O'Neill. It's the first final berth since 2001. Coach Jones is doing a great job over there. Again, Dover, another school just like us, smaller school, but a school that was just 8-man a couple seasons ago, and now they're in the championship 2 seasons later. Just off hard work, staying down, right? Didn't win a game last season. Beat Fallsburg for the first one this season, and then went to O'Neill, beat O'Neill, who's clearly having a down year. Which is also completely shocking to me how far they've come. And that's football. That's for state champs 1 year, winless 2 years later. I mean, for football really doesn't get any more mysterious than that. But shout out to Dover, big win for Dover, big win for the program, big win for the community, small little community. But they'll be in the finals this year against Chester.
And then the last two schools showing having a good season this year. Again, on the other side of the river, Spack and Kill and Highland. You're playing Highland. They're 5-2. But the Spartans are also 5-2 out there as well. So.
Yeah, Spack and Kill got us. They got us. We went there. I honestly thought we was gonna get Spack and Kill. We scored to open up the game 8-0. They score. We got an 8-6 lead at halftime. And then they pulled the fast one on us. They scored and then did what Middletown did to VC. They onside kick caught us completely off guard. Hats off to that coaching staff. It was a great play call. Caught us off guard. Defense held, but the offense just couldn't score. Spack and Kill did a great job there. They got a good quarterback run game. And again, another school where those guys are buying in. The school that was just 8-man 2 seasons ago. And now right on the verge of going to the Class B playoffs. Yep.
All right, cool. Anybody else? Anything else?
No, we covered a lot of folks.
I think we have, yes. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week. And I don't know. We'll see how Isaac feels.
Stay safe, everybody. Good luck.
No problem.